What is a preliminary trust distribution? Trusts are legal entities designed to protect assets and distribute them over a period of time under certain conditions to certain people. The trust is created by a grantor who initially owns the property and puts it into the trust for beneficiaries who will eventually receive those assets. It's for these reasons, trust distributions are an essential part of the operation and management of any trust. Trusts may be created with distribution conditions in mind, such as when you want a beneficiary to reach a certain age before having access to trust property. Other trusts may be created for the estate planning advantages they offer, such as avoiding probate court, achieving beneficial tax status, or transferring power over an estate to a trustee. No matter what kind of trust you're dealing with, as a beneficiary, distributions are vital. For financial planning and your well-being, you need to know when you're receiving funds, how often, and how much. What is a partial trust distribution versus a preliminary distribution? Partial trust distributions and preliminary distributions are different names, essentially for the same thing. Both refer to the distribution of some trust property prior to the complete and total distribution of the trust. Many grantors choose to create a revocable living trust so that their estate avoids probate when they pass away. In those cases, there are typically few conditions put on distributions. The goal of the grantors in those cases is simply to pass on as much money to their beneficiaries as quickly as possible. In many of these instances, the trustee may consider using a partial or preliminary distribution to get some of that money to the beneficiaries. In fact, some revocable living trusts may explicitly call for the trustee to distribute assets within a set time, such as 60 days, or by a certain age. When a trustee takes control of trust property after the grantor's death, they have a duty under California probate law to administer the trust according to the instrument and terms of the trust. So if a preliminary distribution is included in the agreement, then the trustee is going to have to abide by that and distribute some of those funds. Trustees are also required to distribute assets within a reasonable amount of time, but that does not mean the trustee must give you your entire inheritance as soon as you ask for it. There's a lot of considerations that go into whether that is reasonable or not to distribute or not. How long does it take to distribute funds from a trust? A trustee must take inventory of trust property and determine an appropriate plan for managing the assets and distributing the funds to all trust beneficiaries. These processes take time, though the length of time varies based on the trust size, the complexity of the assets, how many beneficiaries, what each person's getting, etc. For example, if the trust property mainly consists of real estate, jewelry, or artwork, the trustee will need to secure control of those assets. They're also going to need to obtain expert appraisals to understand the actual value of each piece of property. Finally, before distributing the funds, the trustee's either going to need to sell the property and convert it into cash so it can pay out those beneficiaries, or it's going to have to come up with some other kind of agreement between all those beneficiaries to make sure each of them gets what they're supposed to. Sales of any of these items can take time, obviously. As a beneficiary, you may want money now, but you also don't want the trustee to engage in a fire sale that ultimately generates less money for you than what you otherwise might receive. It's a balancing act. While the trustee navigates this complicated sales process, the grantor may have set aside some liquid assets, some money, such as bank accounts or investment accounts. The trustee generally can distribute these funds quickly, although oftentimes they need to hold a reserve for unforeseen expenses and circumstances. But mostly, in these situations, a preliminary trust distribution might be appropriate. Do beneficiaries of a trust have any rights? As a beneficiary, of course you have rights. You don't want to wait any longer for your inheritance than you need to. You also know that the trustee typically pays themselves for their work out of trust property, and the trustee generally pays themselves an annual fee. Therefore, the longer a trust exists and is being administered, the more the trustee is going to make. You as a beneficiary have certain rights to ensure that the trustee does not take advantage of the situation or mismanage your funds. First, the trustee owes you a fiduciary duty. They also have a duty of loyalty to act in your best interest. Legally, beneficiaries have the right to petition a court to force a trustee to provide an accounting of a trust and its property. Trustees also have to provide you with a copy of the trust agreement documents so that you know that they're carrying out the grantor's wishes. Finally, a trustee must keep all beneficiaries informed of any significant events, such as any sale of trust property. They also must notify beneficiaries of any requests that they receive from other beneficiaries, so that you can see that other beneficiaries aren't getting something that they're not supposed to, or that they're getting something that you didn't get. If you believe the trustee is not promptly distributing trust assets to you and other beneficiaries, you have the right to petition a court for relief. You can either seek to remove the trustee or have the court force them to issue your distribution. Typically, courts prefer prompt administration and distribution of assets and are going to be willing to help where a trustee isn't doing what they're supposed to. Have questions? Give us a call or shoot us an email anytime. At RMO, we protect people like you every day. Thanks for watching.